Hi, welcome to a special edition of today's Voice of Greatness broadcast. My name is Joel Bryant and I'm your host. And I wanted to come on today to talk about something that I call the ethic of greatness. And this is so important because as I talk with so many people and interact with people who are in the midst of pursuing their dreams and their goals, regardless of their size or their substance, they seem to be running into a lot of difficulty and a lot of complexity and a lot of perplexity about the pursuit and whether it's worth it or not, and whether they need to course correct, and just what do I do? How do I sustain my momentum during those moments when I enter this malaise or this mire or this muck or this circumstance that seems to suppress my enthusiasm? And we all know that nothing great was ever accomplished without enthusiasm. And enthusiasm is one of the ethics of greatness. Without enthusiasm, you're going to begin to lose steam, lose focus, lose fire, and you will ultimately lose the fight. So you've got to have the ability, the willingness to maintain the ethic of greatness. Here's one of the first ethics, or the ethic of greatness. You must know how to engage in intelligent comparison. Now, we live in a culture where we have instant access to most people's lives, especially celebrities and stars and high achievers. And a lot of times, because we're not critical and we're not conscious and conscientious, we use these comparisons in a way that deplete and deflate us rather than encourage us and inspire us. Now, I'm not talking about feeling good and going into a fantasy of what it would be like to have what they have, or feeling like you're deficient and you were deprived because you don't have what they have. I'm speaking of using comparisons to compel you in your pursuit. And here's how you do it. Compare your practice, compare your principles, but never compare your person with someone else. For example, what are they doing? Not what have they achieved, but what are they doing? What is their practice? What is their principle? What are the premises upon which this person that you admire and that you look up to, what is it that they do on a daily basis that you can mimic and moderate and maybe magnify in order to change your practice, to improve your performance? And that is so important because we look at so many people today, these young people who are just popping up overnight in various fields and various forums, and these people seem to be special. And when we look at ourselves, we tend to feel deflated or deficient or inadequate, feel like we're not going to get anywhere. And that is a wrong use of the ethic of greatness, is a wrong use of comparison. You must compare your principles and your practice, but not your performance or your person. That is so important. And when you use comparison that way, then guess what happens? You renew your energy, you renew your strength, you revive and revitalize your commitment, and all of a sudden, you get the motivation to keep going. Not only to keep going in a way that you're drudging along and you're trudging along, but I mean you begin to work with enthusiasm, excitement, optimism, expectation, energy, passion, desire, all those qualities and features that are fundamental to not just success, but enjoying the journey. I want to encourage you today. Practice the ethic of greatness. Compare principles and practices and even your performance, but don't compare your person, because guess what? You're never going to measure up. And if you do measure up, guess what? You're going to be prone to conceit. You're going to be prone to feel like you're better than someone else. So know how to use comparisons in a way that compel you and not indict you, in a way that ennoble you and not diminish you. Second thing is, you must be careful and you must be committed to defining your activities. Don't allow other people, don't allow circumstances and situations to define your activity. Here's another ethic of greatness. Don't allow a circumstance to become a lifestyle. Now that is so important. Do you realize that there are people who had one circumstance at one stage of their life and they are still stuck in that stage of their life? They have allowed a circumstance, painful, impoverishing, heart-wrenching, even unjust, but they allowed a circumstance to become a lifestyle, and you have to watch that. And the way you avoid that is you have to reevaluate what you say that this circumstance means. And we all have that ability. This is about self-definition. This is the right to create for you your own narrative about your life. And you have to be able to redefine what happens to you. If not, you're going to be defined by it. And the word define literally means to limit. You're going to be limited in your pursuit of greatness and success because you define something wrongly and in a way that took away your energy, stole your faith, your creativity. You may have gotten out of school and you thought, well, I'm going to find me a job in probably in maybe 6 months to a year. And it's been 2 years later, and now you still haven't found a full-time job in your field. And you're beginning to define yourself by your inability at this point to gain the position that you were educated for. And you have got to be careful about those negative, limiting definitions that discourage you. And it makes your pursuit of your goals become drudgery and drudgery. That is so important. Compare practices, performances, and principles, but don't compare your person. Don't let a circumstance become a lifestyle. And finally, tied to definition, how do you define your actions? Let me give you a story. There's these two guys. Jeff is a railway worker and Joe is the CEO of Southeastern Railroad. And these guys started working together like 30 years ago. And over time, Jeff rose to the ranks to become the CEO of the railway company. And so he's going back out, visiting some of the sites that the company owns to kind of boost morale and stay in touch with the employees. And then on his last visit, it takes him to the site he started some 30 years ago as a railway worker. And as he's walking through the warehouse, he sees a guy over in the corner with his back turned. And so he dusts himself off and gets ready to go over to greet the guy. And then he gets about halfway there, and the guy turns around. And they look at one another, and the worker says, Joe? And then the CEO says, yeah, this is Joe or Jeff. I probably got the names transposed, but you get the principle. So Joe is the worker, Jeff is the CEO. And they exchange greetings and courtesies and pleasantries. And then Joe, the worker, steps back and says to Jeff, the CEO, he says, man, you have come a long way since our days of laying tracks together. The CEO steps back, gets a serious look on his face and says, no, you were laying tracks. I was building a railroad. I want to ask you today, what are you doing? Do you see yourself as simply laying tracks? You have an insignificant job because you're an insignificant person? Or you see yourself as building a railroad? See, you have the right to denominate or to name your action and your reaction, your responses and your responsibility to your reality. And if you don't do that, and you don't name those in a way that ennobles and encourages you, then guess what? You're going to condition yourself to be limited, defeated, and ultimately you're going to abandon your pursuit of greatness. I want to encourage you today. Greatness is possible. Don't allow circumstance to become a lifestyle. Compare your practices and your principles and your performances, but not your person. And be careful and committed to defining your actions in a way that allow you to renew your enthusiasm, deepen your commitment. And I believe that in time, you and I will meet on the summit of greatness. This has been a special edition of the Voice of Greatness broadcast. My name is Joel Bryant. Until next time, have a greatness week, because you can.